when you're talking good stuff, it's hard to get talked out, isn't it? It's a good thing. I now declare that we're in open session again, and the meeting is now called to order. This is the City Council regular business meeting agenda for August 13, 2019. It has followed immediately the Truth and Taxation meeting, which was required by the state of Utah. This meeting is beginning at 7:15. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Bingham. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Cassie, show that as unanimous. We are at the point where we would like to open this meeting to public comment. If there is a public hearing, there are a couple of them in here. We will not be discussing those public hearing items at this time. Something other than that public hearing, those public hearing items we would entertain at this time. If you would come forward, state your name and place of residence, and we'll allow you 3 minutes time.
I better not go over my 3 minutes because it's up on the I've not been on this side of it for a long time. Just to clarify a couple of things. Fees are taxes, okay? They are taxes. We can say it any way we want, but they're taxes. So there's been a lot said about some needs of our parks and so forth. Several years ago, Lifetime came to the city and asked to
You didn't state your name and place.
Oh, Larry Shingleton, 1738 West,
Thank you.
1400 South.
For those
Syracuse.
listening in, that's important.
Okay. And but Lifetime came to the city and volunteered to do some work in our parks or whatever else we needed. And when you get 1,200 employees coming and doing work, it would have saved the city thousands of dollars in man hours spent by our people. And I've strolled through Jensen Park, and Jensen Park, as far as I'm concerned, is not in the condition it was when it was built. And a lot of things that were there are no longer there. Signs and bushes and stuff look like, pardon the expression, crap. And I'm very disappointed that some things haven't been done. But there are ways that we can get things done without costing the city money. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else?
Brent Burgess, 3008 South, 3000 West, Syracuse. I'm here tonight because we, on behalf of my neighbors, we feel like in a recent meeting that we attended, a planning commission meeting, we felt like our concerns were not adequately addressed regarding a subdivision that's proposed in that area where over 500 houses are proposed to be put in. A number of people got up and spoke in opposition to it. 3 people had emails read in favor of, and none of them attended. Several hundred people signed a petition, and many of them made comments. Those comments weren't read during the meeting. We just want the city council to know that motion passed 3-2 in the planning commission, and we feel like we're starting to be pushed into something we haven't had much of a dialogue about. We feel like that property could be developed in a very nice way, and right now it seems to be heading in a very high density type of a situation. And perhaps it's favorable to the city council because it might increase revenue real quick. You know, with 5, you know, as much as some of the lots are like 1/8 of an acre, 1/9 of an acre, very small lots. So you're getting 4 or 5 houses on property that right now you got 1 acre, 1 house on an acre. So you're getting many houses per acre versus one. So that's gonna give you more property tax revenue. So we just wanna make sure that before the city proceeds and decides to approve this type of a project, that the neighbors most affected, including the traffic up the roadways, is adequately addressed, and we don't create a situation where, as Mr. Mayor, you said a few weeks ago, that you were afraid that the Davis corridor might create a division between the city in one of our meetings. And we don't want that to happen either. And we don't want it to happen because we put a tremendous amount of high-density housing over there, and just to help out different issues in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.
Hi, my name is Amy Epps. I live at 2933 South, 3000 West. And I just want to say that we love living here in Syracuse. We did, however, start out on we had a rough start. 3 years ago, we had a fire, and it took 40 minutes for Syracuse to get to our home, and we're on the same street. The first city to respond was Clearfield. So I just want to, these are kind of out of order, but I just want to point out that while we've lived here, I've heard some really great stories from people that have talked about Mike Gailey's stories about Syracuse and how much he loved it growing here and the history. And, you know, just the country feel and close neighbors. And that's what we love about Syracuse. We love our neighbors here. We believe there's going to be a rapid growth of residents in a short period of time. There'll be more crime on the west side of the west corridor, and there's the police department is on the east side. While we were out on our fire, we had things stolen from us, generators running our sprinkling system, firecrackers in our mailbox, and also we did some phone calls with Friends of the Great Salt Lake. They're protected animals possibly down there, called the Utah toad. They'd like to be at the next meeting. And there has not been an environmental study done for the impact on the area down there and on the Antelope Island, as far as, you know, the high water table. When there was a gentleman out surveying the property to the south of us, it's cut down about 6 inches, and in there it's full of water. Clint Sherwood's horses would roll in it and play in it, and we asked if that was able, you know, if they were able to build on that, and they said absolutely not, because if they build it up, it will flood the homes in the surrounding area, and we are one of those homes. There's low water pressure down there. It's extremely low. Sometimes it's hard to even spray off the dishes. Delayed time in filling tubs, sinks, and whatever. There's overgrowth in schools. That last week at the planning meeting, there were people here from the Davis County School District saying there were no funds in the Davis County School District to add more schools. And there was also a city planner at the last meeting that said this was too much growth in too short of a period. It was too fast. So we are very, very, very concerned about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amy.
Bill West, 1297 West, 1950 South here in Syracuse. First, I'd like to applaud the council and the mayor for their decision tonight on emergency preparedness. It's something that I've been concerned with for a long time, been involved with emergency preparedness preparation, and I applaud your decision tonight. I know what Clearfield City has, I know what Layton City has, I know what the county of Davis County has for their emergency operations center, and I also know what Las Vegas, Nevada has. And again, thank you. But I ask you not to kick the can too far down the road on fire, police, and EMS. In the future, please look for those things to be funded so that we do have adequate response times for all of those, and of course roads. And I appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Fred Perry, 2636 West, 1475 South. My age doesn't make me forget. Just to clarify, on the east-west emergency preparedness, it seems to me that it was a short sight on whoever sat up there before when they put the fire station down there and built the whole infrastructure for the emergency thing, if now you're going to have to move it up. And if you sit there and you make the argument that you have to have everyone sitting in one location, then you're not going to get any information from the people when the emergency happens, because you're all up here and there is no communications going to come through if you're taking that stand. So when I look at it, I see that you are going to gut the police station and put in a whole massive thing, which could be good. It's good. It's great. What are you going to do with what you take out of the fire station? And what I'm saying is, if you need the generator up here, that's fine. Spend it for what you need to keep the water going and everything else. But I think you have communications in today's technology that you don't have to have everyone sitting within 3 feet of each other in order to do that. And so, I mean, I look at the taxes. Mine's going to go about $45. I mean, I can do that even though I'm retired. I'm not, I mean, this is not that big a thing for me. But when I looked at your thing about the east-west corridor improvement, drop it. If they sit there and put a big structure up down 21st Street in Ogden, that doesn't mean I would go down there any faster. And it's the same thing when the past mayor wanted to make a big intersection at Antelope, because she said people will come up and get stuff before they go to Antelope. If they're going to go down to Antelope Island, they got all their stuff already. If they want to shop, they're going to go up and shop. You're not going to sit there and persuade people to go somewhere. And it's a waste of money just to put a facade up there saying, these are nice, decent people. I moved to Syracuse because I liked the area. People over here, I think, moved to Syracuse because they like the area. It's not because of what we build up on it. And I think that's all I will have to say. Although, the councilwoman Boldeck, if you could talk in a lower voice for those of us hard of hearing, or if they could adjust your thing, unless you've lost your voice because you got a cold or something.
Oh, it's gastric reflux. Kills
That's
it.
fine.
Thank you, though.
Thank you, Fred.
Fran, you need to speak lower.
Lower.
There you go.
I could get to a base eventually.
Hi, my name is McKay Winward. I live at 2850 South. I'm directly north of the proposed RPC. I just wanted to express my opinions on that. I understand that Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Bolduc, you've both expressed how much you enjoy Syracuse and how wonderful a place it is to live, and that you've expressed for future generations to continue that. And that's why you're in support of said RPC. I would like to argue that the proposed way that it's being built would lower the quality of living for those around us and for those who would move in. Because this, I know it's not technically high density, the developer pointed that out last time, but the higher amount of people per acre, I believe it was 4.75 lots per acre, that's going to cause a large headache for those of us around. Currently, everybody on my street has sub pumps that are currently pumping. It's August, and there's water being pumped out even right now. In March, April, May, it's even worse. And if there is a community to go in behind us, that's only going to push more water our way unless some serious drainage issues are addressed. And I don't know if the infrastructure is there at the price point that's been addressed. And I also wanted to ask, have we taken time to ask ourselves, why do we need this particular development? I'm all for people coming in. I love Syracuse. I'm happy to welcome more people in. But why do we have to have the development as is currently? Why can't we have it stay at the current R1 zoning? I see more cons to the current proposal than pros as it stands right now. We don't have the road structure for it. We don't have the drainage for it. And our schools are already over capacity. and I don't think those have been sufficiently addressed right now. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, McKay.
I'm Catherine Burgess Dove, 3034 South, 3000 West. And my concerns are kind of a lot. I have a kid, obviously. I want to be able to take him to the park, but it's hard when there's stickers everywhere or garbage on the ground. So I do think that is definitely a great thing that you're getting another park person to be full-time to help with that, but I don't think you should consider getting rid of the building at all to keep maintenance materials. And then I've lived here my whole life. No, you don't get to talk. I've lived here my whole life, and I loved getting to run down the street to my friends' houses or leave our bikes out without the concern of getting them stolen. But now just even living next door to where I grew up, I have to be concerned about what's outside my yard because there is more crime in the area. Okay, go sit and if we just have a ton of people coming in, that's going to just go up. But I do like the idea of growth just with more land per house, because I loved growing up with grass, and everyone should have grass. That's all, thanks.
Thank you, Catherine.
Bonnie Burgess, 3008 South, 3000 West, and I apologize. Some of you know that I have been struggling with a TBI, and my head is just really not coherent today, so hope I can not be so jumbled up in my thoughts. And I want to address you on the shoreline investment. I know that you are not voting on that or anything tonight, but the contractor and developer has stated every time that they put over a year in this, well, the people in the area around, it's a lifetime investment for us. We've put a whole lifetime into developing that lifestyle, into developing our property, and having the agricultural rural fill there. The density will increase the cost to every citizen. You talk about, yes, they will donate some water, but those costs within a couple of years, now we have to pay for those additional water shares. The city growth goals specifically state to not adversely affect current citizens' lifestyle and change. This directly affects everybody in the city, and especially those in the direct area where you're putting in, and it is high density, 0.08 acre lots is, if you do the math, is 12 homes per acre. I know that doesn't account for roads and other stuff, but where they put them in, it is 12 homes per acre. And around Amy's house, there are actually 17 homes that are surrounding her 1.3 acre lot. That is extremely high density. And then for any future development that comes into the city, I don't think they should be able to buy into existing parks. When we had the mayor's meeting and talked about our plan or vision for the city, people wanted to have open space in homes in residential areas, and being able to buy into existing parks falsifies data or misleads data that they have a lower density than they do because they bought into something that's a half a mile away from the closest point. You need to require any developers, in my opinion, from anybody that comes into the city from now on and wants to develop, that they put the money into water storage towers. We need better culinary water storage. In January, you guys held a meeting that gave pre-approval for this plan to go ahead. There was on the minutes from the city that there was no public comment. That you can see from the petitions that I've sent you guys that there is a lot of public comment on this, as we were not informed. And I think there needs to be more transparency in the information getting out to the citizens. You would talk about the sense of community in Syracuse, and that is the best thing about Syracuse, and everybody that you talk to loves the sense of community. If you allow this high density to go in a rural setting, that it will cause contention. It will, what happened with the Hamblin Dairy, there were lawsuits and things filed for the noise and the smells, and they always won because they were there first, grandfathered in, but they still had to pay all those lawyer fees and costs, and that will cause a lot of contention. And so just respect the landowner's lifetime investment on this, and if I proposed on my property to put in a chemical waste that does not fit the current zoning, I have a right to request that from the city, and I have a right to say, I want this on my property, but you don't have to let me do that. You don't have to let developers do what they request. You can say, I'm going to keep with the current zoning. You are not going to put that on there. So if I brought in a chemical waste dump, that's toxic in our city. And bringing in this high-density housing in this area will be toxic to our city and to the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bonnie. Anyone else? I'll give you 1 minute.
I don't even need that. Do you need me to restate my name though? Okay. I do think we need to work more on our schools, especially with more kids coming in, because I have a 10-year-old brother-in-law that gets bullied and no one ever sees it, and they're overcrowded. I was there 6 years ago, sorry. And it was hard. I had very big classes and had a very hard time learning. So we need to do something more about that too. That's all.
Thank you, Karen. Any other comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. Council, we're at item 3, the approval of the minutes. We held a special meeting of July 23rd, 2019, and the work session of that same date. Any discussion?
Yeah, there's one moment in there that I'm going to ask for approval of a change. On page 7 of the packet, line 25, when we were discussing the changes that happened on Melanie Lane, I'm quoted as saying that I assumed that this had been taken care of. And the way it reads to me makes it feel like I was just jumping to a conclusion, when in fact my intention was that with reports that we had completed repairs, my impression or understanding is probably a better descriptive word for that those things had been taken care of. I don't want to lead any record that I was making assumptions that weren't based on some reports that I'd received. Is that a fair? Thank you.
Any other discussion, Council? I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make the motion to approve the meetings for the special meeting of July 23rd, 2019, and the work session of July 23rd, 2019.
As amended.
As amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, that stands unanimous. Council, we have, on item number 4, we have 2 items of common consent. Resolution R 1933, amending the City Council Rules of Order and Procedure, and the Procedure Resolution R 1934, amending Planning Commission bylaws.
I'm going to ask that we remove item B, as it deals with alternates on the Planning Commission, and I've thought about that a great deal, and I don't think that I can vote in favor of that. I'm sure it'll still pass, but.
All right, let's separate those items. Let's do A first. Proposed Resolution R 1933, amending the City Council Rules of Order and Procedure. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that stands unanimous. Item B. Dave, do you want to lead the discussion?
I'm just I still struggle with alternates on the Planning Commission. I think that when we adjust the rules to include alternates who are not full participants, I think that we have 7 seats. We expect those people. There's 7 seats because we want more voices, but I'm not in favor of alternates. I don't think it's been the success that others feel it has been. But I can differ in my opinion, that's all.
Can I express?
Yes.
Thank you. I would just say that it actually has been a success in the fact that we were having participation problems before, attendance problems before, and with an alternate, we were able to get the city business done before us. Whether or not they vote for it or against it, they are able to have a quorum in place and take that vote.
I also believe that if there are alternates attending, they have more information, and if they do need to vote, then they can step in, as well as if there is a vacancy on the commission, they can step into that role without having to catch up. So I think it's actually beneficial for us to have extra people, and especially if somebody has to recuse themselves. I know that several times we've had people recuse themselves because they have they can't be there for legal reasons, and they can't voice their opinion. So I think that it's beneficial.
with respect, I appreciate all that. I just think there's more absenteeism because they know there's an alternate available.
Jordan?
You know, I'm torn on this for all the reasons stated, but in the end, I do think this allows us to keep business moving forward. It allows the city council or city planning commission to be more effective. I wish this was not necessary, but we have actually had sessions where they were not able to move forward on anything because people were not there. So at this point, I think this is a good alternative. I'm willing to try it on a trial basis. If absenteeism increases even more, then yeah, I would. The big thing is I just hope that people are willing to do the duty to which they are called.
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate thing for this body to operate with these alternates, and so I would support it.
Sounds like we have a decision. I would entertain a motion.
I propose that we amend the Planning Commission bylaws, R 1934.
Have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one comment. I think that the thing that kind of tipped me over the other edge is that we wouldn't allow, say, an alternate city council member. That's not in our format. And so when people are missing, or they know that the weight of attending is important. And when we start allowing alternates, the weight of being in attendance, I feel, lessens.
Any further discussion?
I think there are two different things. One is voted and one is appointed. And having the alternates there again, I reiterate that I believe that benefits progressive business and that they have information regarding everything that's coming up for vote, and they don't have to, if we find ourselves without somebody there to vote, we aren't looking to fill a position or a spot or having to cease business.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
That's 4-1, Cassie. Would you record that? And I'm grateful for that vote because I already have individuals interested in that alternate position that have melded themselves with the city, and also appointments for them coming in. So that would be hard at this point to reverse ourselves. Item number 5, recognition of receipt of Government Finance Officers Association. Brody, would you handle this one?
Steve, you want to come up?
So this recognition, it's almost becoming cliche because Steve gets the award every year. I think this is the 9th year in a row. I just want to read the press release. This was actually sent out in the magazine a couple months ago, but I wanted to take the time to recognize particularly the efforts that Steve puts forth to do the job that he does here. Syracuse City was awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. The Certificate of Achievement awarded to Syracuse City Administrative Services Director Stephen Marshall is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. This award is specific to this last fiscal year. The comprehensive annual financial report, which the city publishes every year, is a full report of the city's finances, of where money went and how it was accounted for, and it is available to the public. It was judged by an impartial panel whose goal was to determine that it met the high standards of this program. Included in these high standards is the demonstration of a spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate the Syracuse financial story. As I mentioned before, this is the 9th consecutive year that Syracuse City has been awarded this honor, And I just wanted to recognize Steve before the council for his efforts, and we appreciate the work that you do here. So good job.
Thanks. That's no small thing. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a public hearing, proposed resolution R 1935, approving the use of eminent domain to acquire parcel 12-108-0042 from the Nathan George Clark Jr. Family Living Trust. In order to use eminent domain, we need to enter into a public hearing and have that discussed. I will share with the council that in recent hours there is a need for us to continue this public hearing, but I would like to open that public hearing up now, but we will continue this hearing either in our work meeting in the end of August or possibly into September. But there are some mitigating circumstances that have come up since the agenda was issued. But in fairness to the public, we're going to open that public hearing for discussion now, but it will need to be continued. Are there any that would like to address this issue now? Having declared that open and hearing and seeing no takers at this point, I now declare the public hearing continued until such time as it can be advertised and reopened.
Mayor, can we do that by motion?
Can we do that by motion? Yeah.
Make a motion that we will continue this hearing.
Okay.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, council.
So are we tabling this resolution?
We're tabling it for now.
Okay.
But because it was advertised, we needed to have you, we needed to open it and have you look at it.
Is this something we'll receive more information on in the future? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We are now in a position to open a public hearing to authorize the administration to dispose of surplus property. Steve, would you give us a preamble of this? Can you do?
I can take that one.
Can you take that one? Are you doing that one? Okay.
Sure. So under our new policy for surplus, these are items that reach the level that need to go to the council. Both of these items are from the police department. It includes a 2009 Dodge Charger and a 2012 Ford Escape. We do have Assistant Chief Rogers here from the police department if you have any questions on these items.
All right. I now declare that we're in public hearing. Anytime we dispose of surplus property, we need to hear from the public. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public hearing. Councilman Savage.
I don't have anything to add. I think these vehicles have reached the end of their service lives, and as such, it would be beneficial for us to replace them.
Okay.
Agreed.
Councilman Peterson.
Agreed.
Councilman Bolduc.
Agreed.
Councilwoman Bolduc.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Man includes all mankind. I'm good.
Councilman Dave.
Well, I'd like to reach out to the public and say if criminals would just not do their business, then we could make these vehicles last longer.
And Lisa.
They've lived up to the measure of their creation, and they can go in peace.
Council, I entertain a motion.
I move that we surplus these vehicles.
Thank you, David. Have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilwoman Bolduc. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Proposed resolution R 1936 authorizing the execution of an interlocal agreement between CDBG grant contract participation with Davis County relating to the conduct of the Community Development Block Grant Program for federal fiscal years 2020, 2021, and 2022. And there's been a little confusion here. Paul, would you bring us up to date on what this means?
So this is really a renewal of the agreement that we've got currently. The county runs the CDBG program for this area. If we really wanted to, we could probably form our own little administration of it, but considering our take of it would be so small, I doubt that we'd be able to administer that at all. So anyway, the interlocal is really, it's an extension of the existing agreement, and it'd be for an additional 3 years with the county taking the lead. The city, by participating, can put in proposals requesting the CDBG grants. And so that's the contracts before you. So if you have any questions about the contract, I'm happy to talk about those.
And council, I might add that I am a participant in that process through COG and did so this year. Any discussion? Let's begin with Councilwoman Bingham.
No discussion, especially if we have you as a representative of our needs, maybe the necessities we have, and I say we continue on.
Councilman Savage.
I guess I'd be curious, has the city received any grants from this organization?
Yes, we have. Do you want to elucidate on some of those? Have any of
Yeah, most of them.
You look so nice too, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to dress up every now and then. So most of them come through our public works projects. So Smedley Acres, just south of City Hall here, maybe 4 years ago we did a utility project with roads and utilities that helped fund that. And then most recently with Melanie Acres, we received a grant to help support that project.
So it doesn't sound like there's a downside to doing this.
Especially
No
not to have
downside
to
at all.
do it regulated ourselves.
Okay.
Is it typical to have a 3-year contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion, council? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt Resolution R-1936 concerning this interlocal agreement for CDBG grants.
I have a motion from Doug. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would you record that as unanimous, Cassie? Consideration or action on the Criddle Farm Subdivision Development Agreement amendments. Noah, you want to bring us up to date?
Okay. Last spoke about this. In the packet, the entire, whatever it is, 40 pages of development agreement is in there. This is the decision here tonight is to decide whether or not to amend the development agreement in place for Criddle Farms. The current development agreement, if I can summarize, basically the way it's written now says that there will be a public park, about 1 acre park, and a well. And the way the developer would like to, has proposed to amend the agreement is to make it so that instead of a public park with all of the maintenance involved with that, he would like to, for that to be a private park instead with a HOA owned and maintained pool. And then the well portion would remain the same. So the amended version would result in reduction in maintenance costs from the city. I know that the applicant or the developer and also the landowner is here in the audience. If you have detailed questions about either of those items, I'm sure they'll be happy to stand up. Also, Robert, our Public Works Director, is here. He's voiced some concern about the well and the original agreement. We've had some in the packet. I put a list of kind of some estimated costs, annual costs, and so with this, really the decision is whether or not we should amend this agreement, and then, or if there's any other additional amendments relating to the well, if needed. But yeah, I'll leave it at, I feel like that pretty well introduces the topic. We're here for questions and discussion.
Council, do you have questions of the developer or the property owner?
Well, maybe. So this might be for Robert, Noah, it might be for the landowner, developer. If we don't approve either of these options, just say we don't want any of it, what happens to the well? Because if I say I don't want to pay to take care of that, then do they do it? Does it get capped? What happens?
Would both of you gentlemen state your name and relationship?
Legs went to sleep. It's kind of funny walking down here. Con Wilcox. I'm a manager of William Criddle Farms, LLC. Fourth generation. There's my great-grandfather, and settled there in 1887 is the homestead that we're talking about. Some, 50 years before Syracuse was even incorporated. So that is really early Syracuse. The priority date on the well was 1895. Historically, to the early residents of Syracuse, the water has always been known as sweet water. And some of the residents that are here, I know the mayor has drank out of that well before. It doesn't have a sulfur base to it. And the new source samples that we had done by the in-depth testing that was done verified that. There has been some questions, I think, brought up about of it being an artesian. Well, it was artesian for 100+ years. In talking to water geologists that we have retained, up until even when we drilled the well, it ran for about 2 months. But since then, in the past several decades, municipalities to the east of us have drilled several wells at a deeper depth and a larger draw, which actually take the pressure off of the aquifer. Is the water there? Absolutely. But at this point, it requires a small pump. The pump that we installed on there, the cost of that there's been concerns about the cost. $2,200 pump. It's done from not having to disassemble the pump. It's put on the wellhead. So as a farmer, I can do it. It's nothing that's required of any expertise. It's 24 to 30 gallons per minute is what the flow would be, just primarily for drinking fountain. The testing requirements, that's a concern. I contacted North Ogden Public Works Director Jason Rainey, which is a past Syracuse resident. He grew up in Syracuse. His folks are on 3000 West there. He said it's been a real boon to their city. He said the stories that come out of that well and the meeting place of people, they come down, Thiokol sends a van down to fill water bottles. Some people claim it's a fountain of youth. Some people claim it keeps their cat alive, which is 30 years. All the stories that come of it, and it's quite a social thing for the city. That can be done as a non-community water system. And what that means is it's not a part of the existing community water system. It has its own ID number, and it is tested differently. And the Wilcox family have already done the new source sample, which is quite costly, that would give the criteria on the future of testing going forward, which he says is basically bacterial tests. And that's done through the Davis County Health Department. It's required once a month. North Ogden does it twice a month, just to cover bases. They have a sign posted that it's not treated water, and the non-community water it's an amenity, it's an amenity for the public, and not a municipal that you drink out of the tap. So it makes that as a different thing. I'm just trying to think that, I see this as an opportunity. You have a trail system that you're integrating down there, and this is on the trail system. You have Heritage Days in Syracuse. Well, this is heritage, and we've drilled the well at a depth of 618 feet. We've cased it, the concrete casing down 118 feet, and it is well into the aquifer. It's in a protected aquifer, and I think it's a good thing for the city. I hate to see the city if they don't go forward with it. If the city does not go forward with it, it would be our request, the Wilcox family, that we keep it in our name and we transfer the water right to some other property that we have elsewhere here in the city. So any other questions you have?
So that in part kind of answered my question. So who would have access to it, though? If we say no, you want to keep it, what would happen to the...
Of the development agreement dated May of 2017, it was our responsibility to take it to this point, to improve it, to drill the well, and it had to meet all government requirements and I guess artesian, I guess, is what they're saying. Well, I'm sorry, but it's not going to be artesian because of what's gone on prior to it. But is the water there? Yes. It would be a public well, and I think that was in the workshop was kind of mentioned that the park would go to an HOA except for access to the well. Any other questions?
Con, would you stay right there? Just
Sure.
take a seat and we'll move on. Any questions of the developer?
No, I think the developer, he will address the pool and the clubhouse. I'm just solely on the well.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilman Pearson?
Yeah.
I think I could bring some light to at least what the development agreement says. It says if there's not a well there, then the developer would install a drinking fountain, just a culinary drinking fountain. So whether or not the landowner or the developer, the HOA, decides that they would take over the well, that would be up to them. It sounds like what Con's saying is that there wouldn't be a well there, and he would just use it for his own uses.
If the city, in all due respect, if the city doesn't do their end of the development agreement that we've done at this point, we would request that, there's no reason to have a well sitting there drilled and if it's not going to be used and the water right.
I'd kind of like to ask a question of it's Public Works. If we decide to go ahead with the artesian well, I know it's with a pump. I'm not sure it still fits that criteria. What would be the city's liability for both the maintenance and in the event there is an issue, what is our liability in that? Maybe that's a question for Paul, the liability part. But
yeah, liability or responsibility? What do you mean?
Let's talk about responsibility first.
So if the city takes over responsibility for maintaining the well, we have the operation maintenance costs of the pump, as well as whatever fixture is there too. Ensuring that the city has to take the bacteria tests once a month, plus the nitrates twice a year tests, and we can submit it to the health department for review or for analysis, and then they submit it to the state. There's also power costs associated with it, and then pump replacement. Pumps are going to go out at some point in time. They don't last forever. There's also source protection plan, which Con said he would put that together, but they have to be renewed every 6 years. That's about $6,000 each time. I think that about sums it up. So that's in one of the papers in your packet. Overall, I had estimated about $4,700 a year, and that's a pretty reasonable estimation without really knowing what additional unknowns could come up.
Okay. And the second half is, so it sounds like there is, North Ogden has just labeled that as not a treated water source. Does that protect the city in any way?
If the city's going to be providing this and saying it's drinking water, then certainly we're going to have to just follow those regulatory guidelines. I don't know whether their liability is increased or not. It sounds like it's safe up there, and I would recommend that we follow the testing guidelines to ensure that it's safe and not just put up a sign that we know everyone's going to ignore. I think that, yeah, there's a standard of care there, and with the regulatory system in place, if we just follow that, then we would have a lot of protection. And if we discover a problem, then we can stop it instead of waiting for people to get sick.
So it's really the question before us is this well worth $5,000 a year?
Well, isn't there a part of the development agreement that this well was gonna be deeded over to the city with the park? So
I know, well, where is
Yeah.
that in the packet? It's
Well,
in the packet.
development agreement.
It's, yeah, you can make.
It's in here.
Yeah, it's in the development agreement.
Yes, but this is,
Yeah, okay.
I understand. The conflict is that if we're now being asked to give the parkland back, does that come with the well, or does that come without the well, or
so
who
this,
owns the well?
yeah, this is a three-party contract, so all parties have to agree to the amendments. As it's proposed and written right now, all three parties agree. If anything changes, then all three would have to agree. But your question is who owns the well right now? The Wilcox family owns it now. So there's in the agreement it says that they will develop the whole park and the whole well and the drinking fountain and the cement pad and the parking and everything, the grass, everything around. They will.
It all gets turned over to the city.
And when that's acceptable by the city and also by the Division of Drinking Water, then that would get turned over to the city. So say the city doesn't want that anymore, then that would be a change in the contract and a change in the agreement. Then maybe Paul can comment whether or not they'd still be obligated to give the water shares, but it sounds like that they wouldn't be, because that had changed, they wouldn't be required to give that over to us anymore.
Certainly with an agreement, it's signed. So, yeah, if there's going to be a change to it, this is a negotiation. So if part of the negotiation is, well, if you don't take the well, then just give us the share. That's appropriate if we all agree to it. So, yeah, you can't unilaterally change this agreement. We need to have both sides agree.
Right, but we're being asked to change it. So that's my point, is we're being asked to change it, and the request is that we change it just so much as give the land back. But, and I guess that goes without, see, I'm trying to understand how separate are these? Is the well separate legally? And if that's the case, then do we have the right to retain it without the park?
Yeah, the agreement right now as it's written says it's all lumped together. The land, the maintenance, the well.
What do we have the option of doing?
Yeah, whatever, like Paul said, we're negotiating that and talking about right now. The way that the proposed amendment says is that we would keep the well and they would have the land.
But
So I think
that's not the original agreement.
No.
We're changing the agreement.
That's why I said the proposed is what I meant.
They get the land back, but we still keep the well.
Yes.
Now, what I'm trying to follow here is, do we maintain that we end up with ownership of that well by maintaining it?
Yes. Sorry, I misunderstood your
I want
question.
to make sure that that's clear.
And the water rights.
And the water rights, so they belong to the city.
Yeah, once they develop the well and give it to us, we own the water right, which for a growing city, I mean, that water
Right, has
is
a value.
ours. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not a tremendous huge water right. It's what, 16?
Runs at 20, but I think the right is for 10 gallons per minute.
Okay.
Yeah, to be clear, we want you to own it.
Okay.
But if you're not going to utilize it, then therefore, as per, what we agreed upon, then obviously, we'll take the drilling and that and move it on. So we want it. We want that. I think it's a boon for the city. I really do. I think in your trail system, and those trees there are 135 years old. So it's one last piece of Syracuse, of the old
Part of the
Syracuse.
land, though.
What's that?
The trees are part of the land. We give that back to you. You own the trees. We have no control over what you do with the
Well, he'll address that, what they have in mind there.
And
Well, I don't know that matters, because we're not, doing a deal to preserve the trees or not. If we own the well, I think we'd like the trees, but they could die any day, and then we're stuck with pulling them out anyway.
if I could clarify, just to make sure that to answer your question about the trees and what the agreement says about the park is, we would have input on what the park is, and the developer's committed to building and maintaining the park. So the current plan is to preserve all of those trees. But you're right, the trees could die, you know, stuff could happen. But so we're clear that the park, whether the HOA owns it or the city owns it, it's happening, and the developer's still committed to do that. It's just whether or not the city owns and maintains it. That's the difference.
So in my mind, the only question is it worth gaining the ownership of the well to maintain it and pay for the maintenance and ongoing issue of the well? Because the question of the land is, it's an all or nothing deal, basically. We're giving it back to them, or we maintain it, but they have to build exactly what was originally planned.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to build their swimming pool
Right.
on our land. It wouldn't make sense for us to maintain
And we wouldn't
that.
want that, so it's all okay. I'm just saying, so the real question boils down to, do we want the well for the price of taking care of it?
That's right.
Yes.
And maybe I can move this along. Is there any objection among the council to turning the majority of that land over to the developer for the purposes of creating an HOA park and a pool?
No.
No, I support that.
Everybody's.
The only
I would-
caveat I have to that is we wanted to make sure that where it is along the trail, I've often seen HOAs put up signs that says for HOA use only.
Yeah.
In this instance, as we've discussed, this is not anything new, that the park outside of the pool area would still be accessible to the users of the trail system.
But for all intents of maintenance purposes,
You want to address that?
there is we have zero investment other than the well. I mean, this is an all or nothing deal. We're not, and this little section because it touches the trail. I mean, this is an all or nothing deal.
Good evening, Adam Loser with D.R. Horton. I appreciate the passion, and we've been in a relationship now with the city and with the Wilcoxes for the past few years, and it's been a wonderful relationship. The whole reason that this came about is because we wanted to set our subdivision that we're going to be in for 6 or 7 years apart from the rest, and so we thought perhaps we can put a community pool in. And as we looked at a lot across the street from the park, I pitched that to Noah to get his feedback. He's like, well, what if you just put it in the park? And we turn the park back over to the HOA. That would help our Parks Department provide an amenity that will predominantly be used by your owners anyway. That will take off the burden of the maintenance of the park. And then we thought, well, what do we do about this well? Well, Con and his family put 50 grand into drilling this and getting it tested and preserving this artifact in the city. And so we wanted to be sensitive to that nature. But if the concern is about preserving a drinking fountain along the trail corridor, my preference as a developer would be to stub the culinary line into the right-of-way and stick it right next to the trail, as long as Hooper Irrigation's okay with that and their gold-plated pipe that I had to put in. But apart from that, we would like the park and the pool and everything within the HOA to be maintained by the HOA, and to have a access easement by the general public on a privately maintained property is something I'm not comfortable with obligating my homeowners to, or having public getting into issues with our future HOA board or presidency. That's just not a good public policy that I'm really willing to adopt. And that applies specifically to the well too. I think one of the thoughts was, well, can't the HOA just maintain the well and we have a public use? It gets in that weird, funky area where we just don't want to. We don't want to do that. So I agree with you. If this is really about the well and the maintenance of it, my preference to satisfy Con and then of course the city is, let's dedicate the well and the ground around the well after we build it according to the standards that everybody's okay with to the city. And we maintain an access easement for maintenance and general public use through the parking lot across the sidewalk to the city property that sits within the park. If that's something that's not appealing to the city and we don't want anything to do with the well, we cap it and we just cover it up, then the park and the pool stay the HOA, and we put a culinary drinking fountain out in the right-of-way along 4000 West for those that are using the city trail to get their drinking water from.
Thank you. That's been helpful.
See, that's where I have an issue, is because this was always supposed to be a resting spot where people could stop and sit along the trail. And what we've just heard is there's no guarantee of access to this area. 'Cause we always kind of envision this as kind of a a waypoint where people could stop and get a drink, maybe sit down, lay on the grass, relax for a minute. We've just heard that unless you're in the HOA, that is not a guaranteed situation, which is why we originally had this in city control in the first place.
Along with this, we have seen what's in our attachments here on the packet. It's the two sides of one coin. You know, there are definitely different opinions about the benefits of this or the burden of this well. And in the original development agreement, it does state artesian specifically. And as people who've looked into artesian, I watched a whole show about it. Anyway, but they're self-pressurized, so then it doesn't need a pump. They require less testing because they're constantly flowing. And so the question really does come down to, can we maintain this, and is it a benefit? Is that a benefit to the city? Now, like on Noah's attachments on his side of the coin is, you know, that Centerville, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Has 5,100 hits on their well that produces the same amount of water.
51,000.
51,000, excuse me. And then we have Robert's side of it, where the maintenance is, you know, you could run 20 drinking fountains for that cost. So the question comes down to, what do we want to do? And because truly, according to this agreement, artesian is not what was promised, and so therefore it's up to us. Sorry.
But it's not what
It's not, yes. It is not, it was what was written in there, and it is not, so that incurs a greater cost to the city by not being artesian as we hoped for.
I'm going to throw out one other concern that I have, and I'm not saying that this is the deciding factor, but if the reason this is no longer artesian is because of what other cities have done around it in drilling, and it's removed that pressure, what are the chances that future drilling in the surrounding area is going to eliminate this, dry it up altogether, or reduce it to where it's nothing?
So the question really is that do we want to use it for the time that we have it? Do we want, that is truly the question.
Yeah.
And then also, it sounds like we need to consider maintenance costs as well, because it doesn't sound like they want to be responsible for the public entering their property on a pocket park.
I could answer the question about the whether or not it could.
There's no protected rights, right? If it loses pressure, or if a water well fails, there's no protection against that, is there? Yeah, but then no water comes out of it.
That is true. If the well dries up,
Yeah.
you're right. If we own it and we want to continue to make sure there's water, we may end up re-drilling it or something, so, or abandon it.
Yeah, okay.
You can also sometimes transfer the water rights.
Right, we don't lose,
have
we
other
wouldn't lose water
sources,
rights.
So if that came to that, we could always put a transfer application into the
The
state.
water right is, you know, you own that, but part of the testing that I've seen the records for how they set up the well, they did what's called a drawdown test, where they ran the well and they tested the aquifer levels, and they indicated that the aquifer was healthy, and the well was drilled to a depth where, according to the documents, that it's a deep well. So that indicates that would be as more of a permanent kind of solution. But like you're saying, you never know. Trees could die. There could be a huge boom in population, and aquifer could go lower. But this is a deep well. They've done the testing. The water's clean, and the water didn't draw down in the surrounding aquifer when they tested it.
At 600 feet, it's not going to dry out.
So Jordan's concern about access is valid to me, and but it's been said by the developer that there would be an easement for access, and it's been said a couple of times that there would be a little bit of land around the well. But what are we talking about here? Is this significant to be able to?
And
I don't
who
want conflict down the road between the homeowners and
now does
50
Park and
people gathered there to get water.
And does Parks and Rec now have to maintain that area?
Yeah.
You know?
That add a burden to them to go take care of that little.
Little tiny.
If you look at the page 70 of your packet, there's a plan. It's about an acre. There's a grove of trees around there.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to give an easement for people to get to the well, and you know he's looking out for the liability of his HOA. Are there going to be people there guarding it with the shotgun? Probably not. But I think that's the answer that he has to say, is that it's HOA. It will be HOA land, and there will be easement for the public to get to the well only. But if somebody happens to lay on the grass right there by the well, I don't know. I'm just being devil's advocate, but I highly doubt that there's going to be repercussion. Now, if we get some squatters hanging out in the trees, you know, he's probably that's
another issue.
Council, we need a proposal. We need a.
I think
oh, sorry, I was going to say, Corinne, you were going to lead out. Is that right?
I think that I'm leaning towards we just divest ourselves of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am as well.
If there's support for that or not.
However, I'm reluctant to give up the water rights is the issue, because
me too.
That is needed for this area to support the.
But what does that really transfer or translate into as a water right? We talk acre feet.
It's small.
I don't know, Robert.
It's a very small. So this is culinary water we're talking, right? Out of a well, so drinkable water. We have right now enough water right. We have a surplus in water rights for our culinary right now that we aren't even using. That we have enough to hold us up to, based on our population projection, we have enough to get us to 2040, which was billed out at the time that water rights plan was developed in 2011. So.
But when we talk emergency preparedness, it's always nice to have a well that you have rights to.
Absolutely, and because we have a surplus in our, we have more water rights than we have the capability of pumping out of our current well. So yes, at some point in time in the future, we will need to drill another well somewhere anyway, and the production of our well is 1600 GPM is what we're getting, rather than just, you know, this is 25 GPM. If you combine a bunch of the other water rights we have put together and build a well that is much more higher producing, the cost per dollar is more efficient. So right now we're probably about $25 a gallon, whereas this little well is about $80 a gallon. I mean, that's kind of the difference we're talking.
Having listened to this discussion, I sense that the well still has value to the Criddle family, even, yes.
So if the size of the water right was a concern of the gallons per minute, there's another well also down there that we were going to give to the city to utilize to up that. So at the same priority date. But I wasn't going to bring that forward until we see what direction we're doing, because we have, you know, I mean, we have invested $50,000 up to this point to drill that well, our family, to give that to the city.
What's that mean? That's
well.
You can't see. What's the size of the well? What's the right water that it produces?
Now, what's the question?
What is the nature of the additional well?
To increase your water right, they can be combined.
How much? We don't know what.
Well, no. Well, I guess we wait and find out if that discussion goes forward.
Well, that's why we're having the discussion now.
Okay, I philosophically would actually love to have this well be a part of our city. But $4,700 a year is a lot of money. We haven't even addressed where that comes from in the budget. Has there been any discussion about that, Brody?
Have to come out of Public Works, most likely.
There has been. You know, as far as the testing and everything, it would probably come from Public Works. replacement of pumps and stuff like that. There's been no decision, but it's likely that that would come out of Park and Rec.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. It may fail here. It may not even get seconded. But due to the last minute new information about said second well, I'm going to move that we table this until more information comes to light.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilwoman Bolduc. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor,
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Oh, wait.
can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
I think it would be worthwhile for the productivity of the next discussion to maybe specifically ask what information you need to help you make a decision.
If there is something else on the table other than just this well, and somebody's throwing out that there's more involved, I need to know what that is, or I can't make any decisions. If that's not something and you just threw that out there randomly, then it didn't exist. But that was thrown out at the last minute, so I say, until I know what that means, I have to continue this until I do. That's the motion, and we called for a vote, and we started at least.
Oh, I think it passed. I'm just saying, just so that
Not
the next
supposed to
meeting's
interrupt
more
votes.
productive.
It is the same right as this one, identical. So that's the answer to your question.
And where is it located?
It's north of this one, on 4000 West. The same priority date. Huh? What?
It's not a new right, it's just additional capacity.
It's additional capacity, yeah,
On this well.
of this well. We're going to combine them and put them to that one. We had no use for it.
Well, we made a motion and voted, so I don't know
Well,
unless you.
We
want-
haven't called a vote.
I'd just like to say that this is very crucial to them moving. They have plans drawn.
Yeah. Well, that's why we need to know the information about whatever else you're putting on the table.
Well, I think it's very simple. You know what the water right is on this one, so just double it, and then you know what your maintenance costs are.
Okay, is it a
So
That's
word?
it's simple.
You said it was 10 GPM, so it's just another 10 GPM?
So then the question to Public Works is, does that double our maintenance, or is that give us double the capacity on the same maintenance?
It would not double
It doesn't
maintenance.
provide that much.
It sounds like you would transfer that additional water right to this well, is what you're saying. Right now, it's pumping 25 GPM. Its water right is only 10, so it's actually pumping out more than it really should.
Right.
So if he adds this other 10, which is 20 GPM,
It's
then
only
you're
legally 20, but it's
it's
still
only
not
legally 20.
25.
So it's still,
It just means you can crank it up a little bit higher.
yeah.
It's
right?
still the same amount that it
It's already
is.
higher than we.
But
As
no
a drinking
additional
fountain, we don't
cost.
need 20 gallons per minute.
It's the same cost
What does
Per
that mean?
gallon.
Same cost, meaning?
per gallon.
Council, we have a motion before us to table. We have a motion and a second. Do you want to abandon that motion?
Mayor, it's,
I think they voted.
according to myself and the recorder, it sounded like there was an actual vote, but it's okay to reconsider it if you need to. It sounded like there was a vote.
There were at least 3 ayes before we were interrupted.
I think you did call for a vote and there were
Right.
votes.
Considering new information, I would like to recall that.
Reconsider?
Reconsider,
Reconsider.
please.
So you
I'd
can do-
like to suggest
You
that
can do that by motion.
With a motion? Okay.
I
so-
second that.
You have a motion and second to reconsider the last action. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. We're reconsidering.
I don't want to hold them up, and my feeling is that I understand the value of the well, and I know that you've invested a lot of money in that. Having it be an ongoing cost for the city concerns me. $5,000 compounded gives us 10 years before we've matched what you've spent, and I know that we hate to say, let's dismiss $50,000 because that's a lot of money. But I am uncomfortable increasing the maintenance for our roads and our water and all of Robert's crew. I'm also, I think that we can do a service to the heritage by, and I recall doing this when I was a young child. I would walk to and from Syracuse Elementary, and there was a water fountain and a plaque and a statue in the corner of 1700 and 2000. And we were very aware that was a special place. And I wonder if we couldn't invest money by capping it as the developer suggested and put it into our water, our city's water, put a drinking fountain there with a plaque that states and is a great presentation about the heritage of this well, and that this is the spot where this originally was, and that it, you know, the years and the family it's associated with, and say, even though we are no longer drawing from this well, this is a special place for Syracuse citizens.
It would be my ultimate request that it not be delayed for D.R. Horton, because we've had some bumps in the road down there. We're fine. I'm fine with that. With you go ahead and put in a tap, and it's fine. That would be my request, that they do not get held up, because its time is of the essence. And if maintenance is a concern, then that's fine. No hard feelings at all.
So unless there's other discussion, maybe there is.
Would you like to make that?
I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
That.
Can I ask something? I'm sorry
Yes,
to
go
interrupt.
ahead, Robert.
If a service goes in, who then would, I would just like to know who would own and maintain that.
And I would suggest it would be our city, because we would tap into our culinary line, but it would just be a water fountain, and we would test it, because, well, the water would already be tested as part of our line, right?
Yeah, water testing is not an issue. I'm just saying the fixture, the service.
Yeah.
So.
And I guess I would say that I would like our city to take care of that, because we'll have put a plaque there as well, and it will be part of the heritage and a draw for the public.
And that's okay.
That's my
I just wanted to be
suggestion.
clear.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's.
May I ask a question of the developer? Yeah, come forward.
Yes, Mayor.
You had mentioned at one time that you would participate in whatever that monument would be there. Is that still your proposal? That you'd be willing
So our plan now is to have an entry monument. It's roughly a 3 by 5 foot entry monument that says Criddle Farms, and then there'll be a large windmill next to that, kind of an entrance feature into the subdivision on the HOA side. But my suggestion would be to put the drinking fountain with the placard and a bench on the next to the trail in the park strip, so that the city would own it. You would be able to maintain it, but it would still be a public amenity within the city's existing property.
Okay.
And we'd be happy to make sure that Public Works signs off on that and everybody's comfortable with what we put in.
Is everyone clear?
I'm good with that. I think if the artesian well were flowing, this would be a different story. I think that where we are, the situation we're in, I think the proposed solution is the best way forward.
Okay.
I think it's a good compromise. I like Lisa's idea, because it still hopefully preserves some of the historic value, but maybe even makes it more practical for our current citizens.
Before we continue this discussion, let me ask for a second. I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman. Now let's continue the discussion.
Okay, so are we responsible in any way at this point, other than the general city responsibility of testing the water lines in this motion?
If the water fountain were to break, I think we would have to repair it.
Yes.
Which falls on what? Parks to maintain a water fountain?
It falls on Roberts.
Well, it could, I don't know.
Well,
Possibly,
we can work that out later.
Because I think it's going to get pushed
We
off.
can work that
That'll
out
probably
later.
come to
I think
paper rock
the
scissors.
question here is, does the city want to do it or not?
That is the point.
If it's, then here's the reason I asked that question. If it's not in a park we take care of, I don't want to put responsibility on our Parks Department for anything that they're not already there maintaining. So if this park has no obligation to us other than this one water fountain, we're now creating a new responsibility in a new location.
You kind of do that for
Which we would have had if it was an
Same for
artesian
us,
well
then.
anyway.
Which we would have had, but then again, this is
And
part
I
of
know
the-
that Robert has said he can put in 20 faucets for one artesian well. So if we do have to maintain and replace, we're far less. I'll take care of it.
Let me ask this. Is the HOA interested in owning and maintaining the drinking fountain in your park?
Probably not.
No.
Great question, but again, it's this concept that we avoid of maintaining a public amenity in a private space. So the answer to that would be no. We'd prefer to push it to the right-of-way that the city would own, and it would be a city-maintained.
See, on the flip side, we now maintain an amenity in a private space.
But it's used by public.
I understand. The question that we've fallen on with other similar situations is, where does that line get drawn? Where is now, we have that with even county amenities. Where is the county responsibility and where is the city responsibility? Because we have that same with some of our districts. You know, where is the city responsibility to maintain this side of, and where's the district responsibility to maintain? I mean, so these questions always cause extra work for both sides.
And I see that. I see your point. I guess that this is the value of having some heritage connected to the original well and the placement of it right along a trail. Is that a benefit to us? And I would say it is, to the point of wanting to take care of it. It doesn't increase their water testing, and Robert had said this is the easiest thing for them to do is to pipe in or tap into that line. So rather than try and maintain continual testing of a different source. And I would love to have there be something that represents this family and this original well. And I think that everybody who stops along the trail will recognize that and appreciate that they have some cold water, a place to sit, and they can fill their water bottle and go on, and they'll read that monument and they'll see what it'll be part of our heritage. And I don't want to place more burden on Robert.
I don't mind.
Or any of the staff. I don't want Cresta burdened. Do you have something you want to say, Cresta?
Yeah, let's bring
Mayor.
Cresta in.
Let's ask Mayor to recognize.
Hello, lady.
I just want to make sure that you guys understand, if we take this over, there could be maintenance to it, because we do have issues with vandalism anytime that you have a drinking fountain.
Yeah.
Which if this is the decision of the council, we'll do and we'll take, but I just want you guys to understand that in every drinking fountain that we have in the city that we maintain, there is vandalism to it.
Mm-hmm.
So just make sure that you understand that. And just depending on what we do for the heritage, whether it's plaque or a statue or whatever, there may be vandalism with it, and we would have to
We'd have to replace it.
take that. So I just want you guys to make sure to take that into consideration.
What's your average cost on a park type drinking fountain?
Well, we just barely were looking at doing the one at the skate park, which we pulled out, which was
we pulled out
$500.
because it was
$500.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to suggest that we keep the monument or plaque separate from the water fountain. If it does get vandalized and it ends up being a burden to us, that the plaque can stand on its own and say this was the spot of an artesian well, and then not have it connected to the actual water fountain itself. So if we do have to take that out because it becomes a greater burden, then we can do that. That's just a suggestion.
Council, we'd have great discussion on this. This has been wonderful. I'm going to move forward to the calling of the question. We have a motion before us and a second.
I'd like to make a substitute motion that we just turn the whole thing back over to the developer, because we've heard the burden. It's just my time on the council. The vandalism is a repeated thing, especially when it's not near something that we monitor. You know, we've replaced that drinking fountain at the skate park 3 or 4 times since I've been here, and I hate it. I hate having to do that.
Do I have a second to a substitute motion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll go back to the original motion.
And I have a question before that. Shouldn't this motion actually include more than what we're saying? Does it not need to include the initial part of this that we're giving him back some land?
Yes.
For the HOA?
Yeah, more detail.
And do we need more particulars in the development of this little?
Sounds like you need to make a substitute
You need to make
motion.
your friendly motion.
So friendly amendment.
I'll let Lisa do it. I just
Okay, I'll
We've
put
said a
another
lot-
I'll put another motion on the floor. I withdraw my original motion.
Okay, try again.
Try to do over. I move that we provide, that the city is responsible for tapping into our culinary water line and provide a drinking fountain, as well as work with the developer for a monument. Is that, and
We're not
I
paying.
think they're going to provide.
I heard
all
the
the work.
developer say he was going to
He's going to pay for
He's
it.
doing the monument.
okay, so
So you just turn the
So,
land-
okay, let me start over. I move that we, as a city, tap into our culinary water source for a water fountain, and we are responsible for maintenance of such, as long as it is available to the public along the trail.
And turn
And
over the,
turn over the water rights and the well back to the Wilcox family,
along with their parkland.
along with their parkland.
Okay,
You better
second.
that one.
Okay,
I'll second.
Dave has seconded that.
No, he said you
Any
better.
further discussion?
I got it. We're good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
You seconded the motion?
No, I said Corinne, you better second that motion because
Yeah.
she was amending it.
Be careful what you say around here.
Okay, it
I
stands,
did not second that motion. Corinne did.
and Jordan, I didn't hear your voice.
I said,
Okay, that's
aye.
4-1. Cassie, would you record that? Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
sorry.
he wants to do it again.
No. If it would be great if we could have an affirmative agreement from, since it's a two-way agreement,
Right.
True.
from the developer.
It's actually 3 ways.
Three-way with Con.
This is painful.
We can agree to that. Just to make sure that the water rights get transferred back to the Wilcox family and the land be dedicated to the HOA through the warranty deed that's already formed. Yeah, thank you.
Connor, your agreement? Okay. All right. Paul, any other council?
No, what we'll do is we'll change that amendment and we'll draw something up that follows that, the guidance you've given us, then Mayor, you'll be the one signing that amendment.
That very clear motion I made.
No, we're fine.
You did great.
Can I ask a clarification on that?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I heard you say the city would pay the cost to tap the main to run it over? Is that
Yes.
Is that what you want?
Is
No,
that what we want?
No.
Well,
No, we would.
okay,
would
so we
provide
want the
water.
developer to pay the cost of tapping into the line, but we maintain the water fountain. Is that what we want to, is that what?
What do you want?
That's not what the motion said.
Yes.
I know.
You have to either recall that item or we're stuck with the cost.
Of tapping into the line? How much does the tap into a line cost?
More than a motion.
You know what, in good faith, I'm going to say that that I think the Wilcox family has spent $50,000 on a well that we are no longer going to be maintaining or taking care of. And I know that came with water rights, and I know that it incurs a cost. To me, it's more beneficial to not have a $5,000 maintenance per year for it. And so that's my opinion. There are 4 others.
Somebody else can recall.
Well,
I can't.
No, I agree with, in good faith, I think we need to just stick with what we just voted on. 4 of us voted on it.
Right. Plus,
I think
it's a minimal cost comparative to what we were looking at.
What is the actual cost?
About 500. Well,
You're going to ask that. I don't know. It would be under asphalt road now, I suppose,
oh dear.
right? So you'd have asphalt
So we have
patch
to
and
tear up the
repair.
road, replace the road. All of those costs.
Guessing
Can we not tap
Any
up
idea,
the
Adam?
culinary line goes into the pool?
8.
Yeah.
Can
grand,
I just repeat?
probably.
Can I just make sure that I understand everything? So as me and Paul redraft this agreement, so just to be 100% clear, the city will excavate and connect the water line over to the drinking fountain location, where the developer will then install a drinking fountain and a plaque and all of the stuff around it, and then the city
we
with an easement,
maintain.
and then we maintain it, or they maintain it.
So let me ask this, is
We
there a
do.
reason why we cannot tap off the culinary line that is going to the swimming pool?
Pool usually
About
doesn't
30
have
feet
its
away?
own line, does it?
That would be more cost effective, but it would be off your.
May I,
Yes.
Mayor? Let me offer probably the most cost-effective. We have some frontage along the park next to Doug Wilcox's home. So the first phase of the park ends, I don't know, 50 feet shy of Doug's property line. There's a little sliver that still has to be developed in the next phase. So my suggestion would be, we will bear the cost as the developer when we improve that frontage of the park and relocate from the hard corner. We'll put it by the trees, still in the park strip, but by the trees. That can be the future home of the drinking fountain. We will tap the main, we'll install the drinking fountain, and we'll work with the staff to create the plaque.
Bless you.
Wait, wait,
Thank you.
Sorry,
Did I say,
want
did I
more
hear,
clarification.
did I hear park strip?
Yeah, we're putting a fountain in a park strip?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't.
Yeah, it's a 12-foot park strip with
Oh,
a 10-foot
Yes,
trail.
it's wide, it's good.
You're
So
okay
we'll
with
have-
that, Robert?
So my suggestion is that we have the park strip and then the asphalt trail. We'll have a bench facing the trail, and we'll have the drinking fountain facing the trail with the plaque.
Love it.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
You may need to do this.
Do we need to move again?
No,
No.
Is that okay, Paul?
whatever you want us to do.
Are we clear?
I think we're all clear. I think we all understand
Okay.
what's.
Well, this was all recorded.
This circus was
Good.
This was recorded. Thank you, Con. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Negotiating ideas is sometimes not very clean. It's
Yeah.
kind of messy.
We're at item 10. You ready to go for another round? No?
Do it.
Authorize administration to execute real estate purchase contract for property located at 2200 South and 1660 West.
Can I go straight to a motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we authorize this contract. We've talked about it many, many
Yeah.
times.
I would second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Cassie, record that as unanimous. Proposed ordinance 1911, amending the impact fee analysis for transportation providing for the calculation and collection of such fees, providing for appeal, accounting, and severability. Is this Steve?
Yes. Just to make it brief, we talked about this last council meeting. This is updating our IFA, impact fee analysis plan only, with the amendments we discussed previously. Two of which are, the first one is the updated ITE trips. There's a pass-through feature now that's added to the table that further reduces some of the categories, not all of them. And then the second one is to update our ITE trips with the new standard. Some of them changed, some of them stayed the same. They went down, so this would be a fee that would be effective immediately upon issuance.
I'm kind of disappointed that some of the people left. This is actually a fee decrease they didn't get to hear about.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We should have brought this up earlier. Yeah. Impact
Hey,
receding.
You want a motion?
yes,
Make one?
where this is state required, yes, I'd make a motion that we accept the amending the impact fee analysis for transportation, providing for the calculation and collection of such fees. Do I have to read the whole thing?
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it goes 5-0. Cassie? Public hearing, proposed resolution R 1932, amending the Syracuse City Consolidated Fee Schedule, making adjustments to the transportation impact fees. Do you want to?
Isn't this just?
Again, the same
Just
thing,
what
the
we
only
just
things
did?
changing are the
that we
fees you
have to
just
have a
approved.
public-
It's a continuation.
We have to have a hearing.
I now declare we're in public hearing, considering resolution R 1932. Anyone from the public would like to comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. Council?
I think we should just move, since we've approved the plan, now let's actually implement the reduction, or, that's the change. So I move that we accept proposed resolution R 1932, amending the Syracuse City Consolidated Fee Schedule by making adjustments to the transportation impact fees.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It was unanimous. We're at item 13, public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to readdress the council with something that was brought up during our session that we need to hear? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. Mayor and council announcements. I know, Jordan, you had one that you wanted to discuss.
I thought we were going to do this in the other room, just because it's more conducive.
We can do so. We can recess into the next room. Would you like to do that, council?
Yes.
Let's take a 10-minute recess and reconvene at 9 o'clock in the large conference room. Okay.
Were we going into the other conference room for something other than closed session?
Just for mayor and council comments. That
I mean, everyone's still welcome to come in there for that. It was just, we had a discussion topic that we wanted to briefly go over with regards to the economic development trip that we had discussed briefly in email. We can do it in here if you want. Just Mayor had said it would probably take place around the table, so we could all.
Let's do it here.
Is
okay,
it
I'm fine with that.
not on the agenda?
I think that, I mean, that sounds like an agenda item.
Right.
I think we want to advertise that we're going to discuss that
Right.
in a meeting rather than just having it come up during announcements.
You wanna do
Unless it's just saying, yes, if you want to go, and yes, I want to go. I mean, I guess that's.
I'm actually want to leave it up to the council's decision. We just have a relatively short fuse. I know we discussed briefly about the city council would be approving any of these types of expenses, and so I just wanted to get your viewpoints on it. I know that this is something we've talked a lot about active transportation. This is something you see as a benefit that you would want me to attend. I would go on behalf of the council. If this is something we don't see as a benefit and is not needed, then I am happy to just not go.
Advise us, Paul.
It sounds like you're asking them whether they want to apply their, unless I'm mistaken, there's a policy that's okay, and you're asking them to.
Not sure if there is a
I'm uncomfortable with the policy discussion that this is inviting, without it being noticed as an agenda.
Right. I wasn't sure how to address this. I just wanted to get the city council's feedback on this, either in a public session or I could just ask them each individually.
So there's already a policy, there's already a budget. If there's underlying concern, could he not just talk to each of us individually?
And I'm happy to do that.
He could, or we could talk about it in a work session.
I don't know that, we had discussion on the record and set a policy that we were supposed to follow.
It was just ask the council.
Right, and I think what Paul's saying is we just need to follow the policy, but if the council's going to act on whether to send a council member to the training, that we do it as an agenda item, not in announcements.
Fine by me.
When do you have to know by?
So you could probably put it on the work session. I think there's time. When is the training?
I think it's mid-September.
Okay,
Right? No?
there's time.
Yeah.
Put on the next one.
So if we want to do that, that'd be fine.
The only reason to do it sooner would be to try and save cost on airline tickets. If it was the council's decision to move forward on this. The further out you book, generally the.
Can we have that policy reviewed, please, to make sure what we need to do?
Yes, if
Thank you.
if the mayor or two council members want to review the policy, we can put that on the agenda.
Okay, or just to inform us of what the policy is, because I have not been able to find it.
Policy is.
Okay.
That's more what I'm asking.
I think it's worth a review. So
Sure.
That we're not sure.
Okay.
Let's continue on with council announcements. Doug, do you have anything?
I attended the museum board meeting this morning, and they were excited to have their software up and going, so I appreciate staff for taking care of that. They are also interviewing for the part-time curator position that we've approved. I think they're doing that tomorrow, they said.
Great.
So then they'll have somebody who knows how to operate that software. But they've got a lot of exciting ideas, and they're very grateful to us for how we've helped them this year.
Okay. Corinne?
I was not able to attend mosquito abatement on Thursday because I was attending my BLS recertification at the fire station, which was awesome. Thank you so much, Chief. I just want to say that Lori did an amazing job and really appreciated that class. So thank you.
David?
I shared my report with you in an email about the sewer board. No major issues there, but I did share that. Arts Council is up against a little bit of a challenge in that they may be in a position where they need some funds to accommodate the orchestra continuing. So I may be bringing that forward at another time, just throwing that out there. I've had a couple of thoughts of ideas that came to me that fit discussions that we've been having, and I've emailed those just as a heads up. This is an idea I had, so we can have those discussions in a meeting.
Thank you, Dave. Lisa?
I just met with the new youth court advisor. They put a notice in our magazine and had quite a few applicants to be on the youth court, which is great, and I'd like to suggest the same thing for our youth council to increase their numbers as well. But we have some really great people that are willing to work with the youth in volunteer positions, which is wonderful. Tells a lot about our citizens.
Really quick, I forgot one thing. CTC has been having some great meetings, and I want to thank the mayor for his participation, and also Chief Atkin as well, even though he's not here and his representatives out in the hall. But anyway, just it's been a great group, and we're really excited about the support that we're getting, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward here quickly. Thank you.
And council, that will probably be on an agenda item that we'll discuss what the city's obligation there is. And I've attended between 2 meetings, 8 hours with them, and feel really positive about what this group is doing. It's being sponsored by the Davis County Behavioral Health, which is part of the CBDG grant process that the county's involved with. The only other thing I would report that there was a fire at the Wasatch Integrated Waste at the building that they are building for the transfer station. It involved the shredding of mattresses. They now offer a program, and they're connected with Geocycle, which is the cement plant up Weber Canyon, where mattress materials are processed, they're ground, and then they're blown in the last phase of the creation of cement. And there is the ash that is created, it actually becomes part of the cement. But they're going to suspend, the fire was in one of the trailers that they fill. It would seem to be a spontaneous thing. They want to look into what's causing that. But it's going to put the Geocycle mattress shredding thing on hold for a time until they know more about it. Council, I would entertain a motion that we take a 5-minute recess. Let's make it 7. Let's put 5 after 9, and let's reconvene.
I make the motion that we reconvene in 7 minutes in closed session.
All right.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's recess.
I think we'd learn a lot. So I would like to go just simply to